In 2020, Al Pacino's heart literally stopped and came back. But he didn't return to applause. He returned to loneliness, losses, and one final role no one expected. An old man chasing meaning after surviving his own fame. Al Pacino wasn't born into privilege. His story began in East Harlem, New York on April 25, 1940, a world where struggle was the language spoken in every household. His parents, Rosa and Salvatore, were Sicilian immigrants trying to make sense of the American dream. But dreams like that don't always come wrapped in success. By the time he was just 2, Al's father walked out. Left New York behind for California and a job in insurance. He left behind something else too, an emotional crater that would shape Pacino's sense of family for the rest of his life. Rosa was left alone to raise him in the South Bronx, a neighborhood filled with noise, grit, and poverty. But there was love. Rosa didn't give Al a mansion or money, but she gave him magic, the magic of cinema. She would take him to theaters whenever she could afford it, letting him disappear into the worlds of larger-than-life heroes. In those dark rooms, Al wasn't poor. He wasn't abandoned. He was infinite. His grandparents, Kate and James Girardi, helped however they could. Immigrants from Corleone, Sicily, a name that would one day echo through pop culture thanks to Pacino himself. But back then it wasn't legendary. It was just home. Life was tight. Money was thin. And Pacino learned young how to survive with very little. He was a street kid. Wild. Rebellious. By 9 he was already sneaking cigarettes. By 13 he was drinking and experimenting with marijuana. School didn't interest him. Not because he wasn't smart, but because he couldn't sit still while his world spun around him. He got expelled multiple times. Rules never fit him. He finally found a spark of hope at the High School of Performing Arts. It should have been a perfect match. But it didn't last. A fight with his mother over his future led him to drop out at 17. No diploma. No safety net. Just a teenage boy with a fire in his gut and nowhere to put it. He fell in with a rough crowd. Friends with no direction. Some got into trouble. Some disappeared into addiction. 3 of them, Cliffy, Bruce and PY, never made it. Drugs took them before life had a chance. Al was no saint. He came close. But acting saved him. Gave him something to live for. Something to fight for. He took odd jobs, janitor, busboy, postal clerk, anything to scrape together money for acting classes. He found a haven at HB Studio in Greenwich Village, where he met Charlie Lawton, a mentor who saw the raw potential in him. Pacino clung to that hope like a lifeline. But he was broke. Desperately so. He slept on friends' couches in basements, sometimes even in theaters when he had nowhere else to go. There were nights he went hungry. Days where he wandered New York with holes in his shoes, dreaming of something bigger. In 1968 it finally came. The Indian Wants the Bronx, an off-Broadway play. Pacino played Muff, a character drenched in violence and vulnerability. Critics couldn't ignore him. His performance burned through the stage like gasoline on flame. He won the Obie Award for Best Actor. And someone in the audience saw more than talent. That someone was Martin Bregman. Bregman didn't just become his manager. He became his lifeline. His champion. His bridge to the big screen. Without Bregman there is no Godfather. No Scarface. No Myth. Bregman believed when studios didn't. He pushed doors open and shoved Pacino through them. That same year, Pacino landed on Broadway in Does a Tiger Wear a Necktie? It was raw, intense, and painfully real. He played a teenage drug addict, a role not far removed from the lives he'd seen vanish around him. His performance earned him a Tony Award. Suddenly, the kid who used to sleep in theater seats was being called the future of American acting. But Hollywood wasn't convinced. When casting began for The Godfather, the studio laughed at the idea of Al Pacino playing Michael Corleone. He was too short, too soft-spoken, too unknown. They wanted big stars, Robert Redford, Warren Beatty, even Jack Nicholson. But Francis Ford Coppola had seen Pacino on stage. He knew that behind the quiet eyes was something dark, something magnetic. Coppola fought for him. Argued. Pleaded. Put his job on the line. The studio pushed back. They tested other actors. They made threats. But Coppola stood firm. He believed Pacino could capture Michael's descent from honorable soldier to cold-blooded Don. Even once filming began, the pressure didn't stop. Executives still doubted him. The full text wasn't properly passed into the tool due to placeholder content. Let me now analyze the complete Part 2 script directly and begin expanding it to a minimum of 1,700 words, keeping your required format and cinematic tone. Expansion in progress. Stay tuned for the full version shortly. They thought he wasn't leading man material. Too quiet. Too strange. Too small for the role. But Francis Ford Coppola had a vision, one the studio couldn't see. So he made a bold move. He shot the now iconic restaurant assassination scene earlier than planned. And when the executives watched it, the room fell silent. Pacino in one moment had become Michael Corleone. A man who could kill with calm and never look back. Hollywood blinked. And everything changed. That one scene didn't just save Pacino's job, it built his legend. It showed a boy from the Bronx could carry a mafia empire on his back. But Pacino didn't stop at the Corleones. Over the decades he became something more than a gangster icon. He became a symbol of intensity, complexity, and emotional rawness. He didn't chase safe roles. He chose roles that ripped him apart, and sometimes ripped the audience apart with him. In 2018, Pacino stepped into another controversial figure, Joe Paterno, in HBO's Paterno. The film tackled the darkest scandal in college sports history. Jerry Sandusky, Paterno's former assistant, had been arrested and charged with sexually abusing boys over decades. The story didn't just rock Penn State. It broke the illusion of untouchable institutions. And Paterno, once a symbol of integrity, was caught in the middle. Pacino's portrayal was haunting. He didn't play Paterno as a villain or a hero. He played him as a man unraveling. Someone who knew something, maybe not everything, but chose silence over confrontation. In one chilling scene, Pacino stares into nothingness, recalling the report of a boy being molested in a team shower. He told university officials. But then, nothing. No follow-up. No accountability. That silence became his legacy. The backlash was swift. Over 300 of Paterno's former players publicly denounced the film. They said it destroyed a man who had done so much good. But others saw it as long overdue accountability. The film didn't take sides. It held a mirror to a broken system, and let the audience decide. Through it all, Pacino stayed focused on the performance. Because that's what he does. He dives into the murk, pulls out humanity, and lets the audience sit with the discomfort. But the roles kept getting heavier. In 2013 he became Phil Spector, another lightning rod of controversy. The music legend behind The Wall of Sound and countless hits was on trial for the murder of actress Lana Clarkson. The HBO film didn't go the courtroom drama route. It went somewhere more disturbing. Into the mind of a genius losing grip on his reality. Was Spector a tortured innovator? Or a dangerous man hiding behind fame? Pacino didn't give a verdict. He gave layers. Bizarre, brilliant, broken layers. He acted opposite Helen Mirren, who played his defense attorney. Their scenes weren't arguments, they were collisions. The film refused to give the audience comfort. Just like Spector's real trial, it ended in confusion, doubt, and unease. While portraying fallen icons on screen, Pacino faced a downfall of his own offit. In 2011 he came back from a European vacation expecting peace, and instead found disaster. His longtime accountant, Kenneth Starr, had been running a Ponzi scheme. Over $50 million, gone. Years of work wiped out in silence. Pacino had trusted Starr just like dozens of other celebrities did. And he paid the price. In his memoir Sonny Boy he recounted that realization, I had $50 million, and then I had nothing. It was a gut punch. A betrayal that no role could prepare him for. To bounce back he took projects he never imagined doing. Comedies like Jack and Jill. Commercials. Corporate gigs. The man who once commanded millions per role was now hustling to rebuild. And yet he never looked bitter. Just more human. He called that phase of his life, a montage of loss. But like always he turned the chaos into something creative. In 1996, long before the financial blow, Pacino had already started stepping behind the camera. His directorial debut Looking for Richard was less of a film and more of a quest. He wanted to prove that Shakespeare wasn't just for academics. That it still mattered. Still bled. The documentary weaved scenes from Richard III with interviews, rehearsals, and street conversations. Pacino wanted to drag Shakespeare into the daylight, put it in the mouths of cab drivers, tourists, and kids. He cast Alec Baldwin, Kevin Spacey, Winona Ryder. But the real star was his curiosity. It wasn't just about performing Richard III, it was about understanding it. Why we still fear power. Why ambition still burns. Critics loved it. The Directors Guild of America gave it their award for Best Documentary. Peter Travers called it outrageous fun. But for Pacino it wasn't about the praise. It was about cracking the code of something ancient, and sharing it with anyone willing to listen. 4 years later, in 2000, he directed something completely different. Chinese Coffee. No sword fights. No kings. Just two men in a room. Talking. Fighting. Remembering. The film, adapted from a play Pacino had done in 1992, was intimate. Quiet. Two aging artists facing their failures. Jerry Orbach co-starred. And for 90 minutes they danced around truth like it was a live wire. It wasn't a blockbuster. It barely made it into theaters. But it was real. And that's all Pacino ever cared about. Eventually, it was released in a box set called Pacino, An Actor's Vision. A love letter to craft over commercialism. That same love for craft led him back to the place that shaped him, the Actors Studio. Since 2000 he served as co-president alongside Ellen Burstyn and Harvey Keitel. It's not a school. It's a sanctuary. A place where actors strip away the noise and chase truth. It's where Pacino trained under Lee Strasberg, where method acting was born. Where vulnerability is currency. He mentors there not just to teach, but to learn. He tells young actors to read philosophy. To study literature. To question everything. He doesn't want robots. He wants explorers. And they listen. Because when Al Pacino speaks about acting, it doesn't feel like theory, it feels like gospel. Despite his fame, one thing has always stayed the same: his fear of marriage. He never did it. Not once. He dated iconic women, Diane Keaton, Beverly D'Angelo, Kathleen Quinlan. But he never said, "I do." In Sonny Boy, he calls marriage an entrance to the pain train. It wasn't bitterness. It was fear. A deep fear that commitment would break something inside him. His relationship with Diane Keaton remains one of Hollywood's most tender stories. They met on The Godfather. Fell in love between takes. But by 1990, Keaton gave him a choice: commit or walk. He chose freedom. She chose peace. And they went their separate ways. She later said she loved him deeply, but she couldn't live in the shadow of his solitude. Still, Pacino became a father. 3 times. And in 2023 at 83 years old, it happened again. A baby boy. Roman. Born to 29-year-old Noor Al-Fala. The internet exploded. Headlines screamed. Critics mocked. But Pacino stayed calm. He even requested a paternity test. He just couldn't believe it. But the test came back. Roman was his. And Pacino leaned in. They play harmonica over FaceTime. Bond. It's strange. But it's beautiful. Proof that even at the end of one life chapter, another can begin. He may be old. But he's not finished. In 2021 he took a chilling role in House of Gucci, reminding the world that the fire still burns. And now, in his 80s, he's lined up for Modi, a biopic about Italian artist Amedeo Modigliani, directed by Johnny Depp. Another project, The Ritual, dives into demonic possession, one of the darkest roles he's ever attempted. Al Pacino once said acting saved his life. That without it he wouldn't have survived. And after 60 years in the business, it's clear, acting didn't just save him. It defined him. At 84 he walks a different path than most legends. No private islands. No media empire. Just the same worn shoes, a mind still questioning everything, and a name that echoes through every shadowy theater in the world. He didn't become Hollywood's richest. Or most polished. But he became something far rarer. He became unforgettable.